All right, we will be recording this meeting. Welcome to the very first Healthy Buildings Technical Committee meeting. Staff is rarely going to be speaking quite a lot this meeting because we don't have chairs and vice chairs yet. So we'll be subbing in as your chairs, so bear with us as we've never technically chaired any public meetings before. So we'll do our best, but anyone can intervene if we don't like the flow of how things are going. With that, thanks everyone for volunteering to serve on this public body. This is going to be a long journey through the rulemaking process for the Healthy Buildings Ordinance. And so with that, I wanted to open up the floor for public comment first in person. If anyone would like to provide public comment. Paul.
Quick public comments, thanks, Paul Shaw, I'm chair of the environment board, and I chair the building electrification working group, which is the first search, and the Healthy Buildings board, Jill, very active. I was the working group, so I just wanted to thank you all because this is a big task, and we need to make sure that it's been done in a way that can be successful, that is technically sound as well as meeting the goals of the ordinance. In the work of the electrification working groups, we did identify a number of resources that many of you are familiar with. There are architects and experts, engineers throughout the community that can be good resources. There are organizations such as the Transformation and the Green Illinois Green Alliance, the Building Energy Hub. Both of them have some really good how-to information, and we've collected some information. Of course, there's what other things have been doing, we've gone ahead of us. So just wanted to let you know you're not alone in this, and the work is very much appreciated. I'm going to try to attend as many meetings as possible to be able to report back to the Environment Board as well as help to be a liaison to the Accountability Board, which I know two of you are also members of. So there you go.
Great. Any other public comments in person? What about online? Any public comments? No. Ooh.
I got nothing. Just good morning to everyone.
Okay. One last call. Any public comments online? All right. So now we'll proceed with introductions of everyone who is on our committee. If we could do name, experience relevant to the work of the committee, and why you applied to join the committee. And maybe we can start with.
Thank you. Charles Davidson. Relevant to the work of the committee. I'm a engineer, 35 years of work experience. I live and work in Evanston primarily. I'm a real estate developer, owner's rep, general contractor. My career arc has taken me through a number of different positions. For the last decade, I've worked in multifamily development. So I guess there was some relevance to the multifamily market. For 7 or 8 years, I worked in operations at Northwestern, so I bring some experience from that position. And then prior to that, just working as an engineer. So currently working on multiple multifamily projects in Evanston. So there's some relevant live experience with what we're doing for new properties. And why did I join? Probably more the relevant experience that I bring is probably why I joined. Personally, it just seems a little bit more formal than I anticipated, but you all can share your opinions as well. Hey, Joe. You can all share your experience, what we're about to go into. But
good morning. My name is Tom Noonan. I'm currently the chair of the engineer committee for BOMA Suburban Chicago. I have around 25 years of running commercial real estate portfolio properties in Chicago and the Chicago suburbs. I was a former chief engineer of a multi-tenant office complex with over 1 million square feet. I ran numerous properties everywhere from Shriners Children's Hospital to high-rise residential in the Gold Coast. So I'm also a teacher of sustainability at Triton College as well. And I currently work for ADM, which is a large provider, one of the largest providers of maintenance solutions throughout the country. I'm a developer, business development director. And so I joined this to really kind of relate my, experience that I've had for a long period of time. Good steward of BOMA. I'm very familiar with 909 Davis. It's used to fall under my portfolio as well. So I'm looking forward to just, giving some of my subject matter expertise and kind of hopefully helping Evanston thrive as well. All you.
Yeah, I'm Joel Freeman. I was the co-chair of the Climate Action and Resilience Plan Working Group that came out, and that was, the plan was issued in 2018. And as a now board member of Climate Action Evanston, I'm retired from a 40-year career as a mechanical engineer here in Evanston for building the systems design, energy efficiency analysis, and commissioning and so forth. So in an attempt to try and apply some of that knowledge into this arena and to attempt to help fulfill some of the goals of the CART plan, that's why I'm on here as well.
My name is Gabrielle Martin. I've been working in the energy space also for 25 plus years. Started out doing a lot of energy modeling initially, then ended up working for Commonwealth Edison for a while, doing your energy efficiency, doing site management programs, then eventually for the Illinois Clean Energy Community Foundation, where I manage their energy programs, specifically ones focused on buildings, personal high performance building, certification. And then eventually net zero buildings. Been leading monitoring-based commissioning teams to get some of these net zero buildings to actually perform as net zero buildings. So a lot of actual experience working with buildings and also building certification. And like Joel, I worked on CART for a while, so kind of bringing that together with my experience working on the Climate Action Resilience Plan, and joined this particular committee to try and, I guess, help bring some of those CART goals about and help Evanston get there.
My name is Maddie Robertson. I am the director of sustainability for Greystar. Greystar is the largest owner and operator of multi-family buildings globally. So we currently have 1,300 multi-family buildings that are exposed to the 19 live building performance standards across the US. My team is tracking 3,000 of our community's data against those different mandates. So we're very familiar with how the data looks and how the buildings are tracking, what the differences between those different jurisdictions are, because we have over 600 different ownership groups. They're all needing to learn about that. There's different ordinances now, and my team is helping to lead our company's communication with clients, with our operators. I'm also starting to teach a DePaul next year on environmental sustainability in a different context. So being able to communicate effectively is a big passion point of mine. I am the Chicago Apartment Association's appointee for this committee, and I joined because I think that these ordinances are very important and very powerful, and done right can do a lot of good. And I know those people do a very thoughtful job at these ordinances.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Victor, and I'm super excited to be on this committee just from hearing everyone's bios. Because I'm a building geek is why I joined this committee, as well as I'm the Neighborhood Building Owners Alliance representative. So currently I own a portfolio for the past 20 years. I own a portfolio of apartment buildings in Lake County and Kenosha. And my background to start from the beginning is I'm a mechanical engineer, started out at Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, ran the Department of Energy programs, built and designed, million square foot corporate facilities, went on to work for ESD, which was an engineering consulting firm, and audited the performance of 40 million square feet of Fortune 100 companies, their energy performance, their facility management. And so what my goal is to being on this committee is to align the goals of the committee in terms of net zero with what is feasible technically, so that when people are asked to implement that, building owners, et cetera, it's something that they can do and it'll be a win-win for everyone. So, but what then, I'm a building geek. When I look around, I'm like, I love that. You know, I'm always looking at how things are designed or how could have been looked better. And as a project engineer, you know, I love working with architects to make things happen. So I think being on this committee, we can make things happen, and we've got a great team. So handing ourselves up there. So that's a little bit about me, and I live in Lake Forest.
Great. Thank you, everyone. My name is Kara Pratt. I'm the Chief Sustainability and Resilience Officer for the City of Evanston.
And I'm Kirsten Vega, Sustainability and Resilience Coordinator with the city. Very nice to have you all here.
How long have you guys been with the city?
2.5 years for me.
And it's been just over 4 years for me. All right, we introduced ourselves. And so now, just as a brief reminder for everyone here, we've had an energy and water benchmarking ordinance in Evanston since 2016. It's for around 500 of our largest buildings, generally buildings over 20,000 square feet, municipal buildings over 10,000 square feet. And as I think you all are also aware, the Healthy Buildings Ordinance passed in March, and the parameters for the buildings covered is the same as the benchmarking ordinance, with some exceptions because all the exemptions were removed from that benchmarking ordinance. And so part of the process of this group is going to be looking at those buildings that were previously exempted to re-examine if they should remain exempted into the future or be subject to both benchmarking and the Healthy Buildings Ordinance. So any questions very broadly about benchmarking and HBO for now?
I assume we're gonna see some of the data for the benchmarking ordinance.
Eventually, yes. All right, next, a staffing update. So we have a vacancy on our team, and so we're working on filling that vacancy, and that person will be staffing this committee as well as the accountability board. So we're in, you know, the process with human resources right now to fill that position. And next, as some of you may or may not be aware, the city did receive a $10.4 million grant from the Department of Energy for both staffing and implementation of this work. The bulk of those dollars would go to audits at what we defined as equity priority buildings. So buildings that might struggle with resources to be able to afford an audit and to be able to afford retrofits. The status of that grant at this point is unknown. It has not been canceled. There's been no formal communication that we've no longer been awarded that grant. But as with many federal grants from the Inflation Reduction Act, the communication channels have ceased to exist. So when we reach out to our team that we've worked with on negotiating the grant, they say that they will get back to us as soon as they can. So that has not changed over the past several months, the status of that grant. And then the last thing on the slide, chair and vice chair elections. We won't hold them today, but we just wanted you all to be aware and to think about if you're interested in that role. Now that you sort of know one another and have been introduced to one another, you might be thinking about who might take on that role, or if you are interested in that. Generally, what that means is it would be doing what I'm doing now, minus the tech part. Staff does the tech part at this point, in a fiddly way. Okay. And so generally in other committees and boards, the chair and vice chair alternate who runs the meeting. The responsibility is building the agenda with staff. Anything else I'm missing?
Just generally keeping everyone on track, making sure that the meeting isn't going to go over or that things are getting out of hand.
Yeah.
It's not that they would, but just if a point is going on for 50 minutes and we only have a certain amount of time, most of it.
And so the next meeting, we will take nominations and hopefully have an election for chair and vice chair. Any questions about that?
There's 6 or 7 members on this committee. 6, okay.
Margot introduced herself, just so everyone knows. She is with the round table.
Mario, we're on the 3rd floor.
Okay, thank you. What room are you guys in?
332.
Okay, thank you. I'll be up there shortly. I appreciate it.
Okay, you might have to call to get in.
Okay, thank you.
All righty. So before I get into this very wordy slide, since Tom has to leave quite soon,
Probably in the next minute or two. Sorry, I expect a phone call with a client out of Finland, so.
any thoughts on meeting cadence? Is
I
everything-
would say probably, I think, once a month is fine, I would say. If you guys are looking to do twice a month, I would probably be virtual. That's okay.
Prefer to do once a month and have it a beefier meeting, you know, more ability to get more covered, I think, versus at my point on meetings. I like in-person meetings, but I like them to be substantial, just, you know, get stuff done.
We can talk about it more.
Going in the next 2 months with holidays, so I prefer we stick to the once a month idea, at least until we get to the next year.
Okay, we can revisit at the end. I just wanted to make sure I got Tom's view before.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah, mine would be great. Yeah, like I said, whatever works, but I could probably do, if we join it twice a month, I'll probably be virtual, if that's okay. Yeah, there you go. It's supposed to happen.
At this point, the deal was about equal.
Yeah,
You better off going Iowa.
pretty much. Yeah, I'll be back. I gotta be upstairs. Good luck.
Okay, well, it's first acronyms, HBTC and HVAC. So that's Technical Committee and Accountability Board. And I was wondering why this, I mean, it's a wordy slide, but it's extremely small. Generally, I wanted to go through the differences in the ordinance between the Technical Committee's responsibilities and the Accountability Board. So since you can't read this, just very briefly, the responsibilities of the Technical Committee are for developing rules for implementing the ordinance, recommending both final performance standards and interim performance standards for each property type, establishing the methodology by which the city manager or designee will evaluate proposed alternative compliance plans, recommending, reviewing, and approving the draft of the final alternative compliance plan form, reviewing the results of city financial aid, including but not limited to evaluations on equity prioritized buildings, aiding in community outreach and engagement, advocating for synergistic policies and programs, recommending, if necessary, the engagement of outside expert consultants to assist with any of the committee's powers and duties, and defining net zero greenhouse gas emissions and determining the allowance of certified carbon credits, verified carbon offsets, payments to local decarbonization funds, or other mechanisms to reach compliance. So those are generally the responsibilities of the Technical Committee. And I won't go through all of those that are the responsibilities of the Accountability Board, but this committee reports through the Accountability Board, and the Accountability Board reports to City Council. So there are certain inputs throughout the year because the accountability board has a reporting timeline with city council. They're to report quarterly to city council and provide an annual report. So there's certain pieces of information that the technical committee will have to feed into that accountability board. All right. Any questions on this?
Yeah.
Yes, all this will be posted to the committee's webpage.
Okay.
And it's also in, this is just in the ordinance itself, but I just kind of put it here for ease. So now, collaboratively with you all, we wanted to get into listing out all of the tasks of the board and then filling in this slide so that we can start to just name all of the things that we're going to have to do together over the next several months. So Kirsten and I added some based off of that previous list. And I'm ready to scribe several more, but I'm going to get out of presenting mode, I think, to do that. Why am I starting presentation? This big. Okay. All right, does anyone have any other tasks that they know that this board is responsible for?
We try to create a Venn diagram or something.
So we're gonna go through all the tasks and then we're gonna go through a timeline and then a prioritization exercise.
Just try to make this like a way.
Yep. So we've already got final performance standards, interim performance standards, net zero definition, and property type classification.
So those have already been defined.
No, those are all, I mean, they're defined, yes, in the ordinance as responsibilities of this body, but we want to set out some other finite tasks.
I think we'd be to keep, from my opinion, just keep it manageable and achievable and not take on more. And what's, right? I'm good with the list. Joel? You've been at this for a long time.
That seems to sum it up. I mean, part of it is, at least under the property type classification, there's a lot of data out there that has to be organized. So, you know, building inventory, you know, where maybe some gaps are. Not everybody has submitted building data benchmarking ordinance. So it needs to be a path to collect some of those outliers as well.
I guess, yeah, in that regard is what Joel brings up is we need to kind of get the data. Which defines some of it.
And we've had a little part of good fortune. Climate Action Evanston had an intern who did a little bit of data processing on the benchmarking data to get that organized and scrubbed into a form that can be used. So I can get access to what was done, and then I'll think that will give us a little bit of a head start on that part.
That's good event, Joel. If the intern started, it finished. That's what we're starting with.
Well, you know, it's very temporary with your students.
So that's where I was going is, what do we need in order to get to definitions? You know, is it already out there in all the, what got us to this point? Right, the list of buildings, what do they look like? Is there like a really nice table, square footage, exterior envelope, you know, all that good stuff. I like the basket of a variety of data to work from. Maybe kind of narrow those kind of performance.
It's an already have numbers or like defining numbers for each building, like the building height.
Yes.
Okay, so that's all. How they work.
And because the benchmarking ordinance requires submission from portfolio, portfolio manager already forces you to have a building type of some sort. So some of that classification, it's not the beginning. But it's,
You like it? When you look at the data, it's something that, you know, we can understand. Somebody's on great programs, we're going to some kind of people great programs, you're like, and
well, that's something we'll need to review.
so
To
That's-
see how the data is organized and so that we can process it. The
Yeah.
thing is, with portfolio managers, you know, sometimes there's buildings that the idea of the building classification is what you can compare against
Right.
similar types, right? So sometimes they don't have enough data for student buildings. So it sort of lacks a classification, so you have to have a process to figure out how those get incorporated in terms of setting targets. So there's these there's a lot of standardization, but for the part that's not standardized. See how precedents.
That's my question is, given what's going on with the government, is Energy Star portfolio manager going to continue or not?
It's funded for next year. It's funded for the next year. Yeah, we are all hugely watching that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we got 12 months. Yeah.
Well, the benchmarking ordinance has data collected over 5 to 6 years now, so that's an issue. It's not 100% every building for 6 years, but just to go back and take it work with this stuff.
And Evanston already has a game plan,
Yes,
so submissions will be public.
yes.
Clients will be public.
is there any entity in Evanston that is verifying just taking a sample of the buildings that have submitted their information versus what they put in?
So in our benchmarking ordinance, there's a requirement for verification once every 3 years. With the passage of the Healthy Buildings Ordinance, that verification requirement changed to the baseline data year that the buildings would choose, as well as the interim performance year. So now verification only has to happen once every 5 years.
Is there a person that goes out and
They have to hire their own person.
always submit a report?
I have a question to your architect verify this data.
And what someone city that's and just say. If I'm a building owner, I can just hire a friend. I don't know, just putting it out there.
It's pretty common to have a third party.
No, I know, I'm just putting it up. Sorry, no, I know.
They put their stamp on it and that's to like.
Right, right, no, you know.
But to your point.
So I don't think they answered my question, there's no one from Evanston physically going out and saying, oh, yeah, they had, I see the geothermal is.
Not for 500 buildings.
Well, it is, but I know.
But to your point, we do need to keep in mind that sometimes data isn't submitted properly.
Right, or just, you know, if I was the building department, I might task, you know, every 3 months, look at them. Or maybe that's a field trip for us.
So one clarification that might be helpful, there's no other department or division that's involved in this work besides the two of us. Yeah, the buildings division is not involved with this. At this point.
So in that regard, how far of a dive are we going into the technical side of this? Vis-a-vis, you know, we're talking about energy conservation, reducing greenhouse emissions, whatever, all your acronyms. Are we just setting standards for these buildings, or are we saying that, you know, it goes beyond just energy, are we going into envelope, like where do we define the technical side of this, or do we not even go into that level in this point? We're just setting benchmarks, you know, standards of goals to achieve and how these different individual properties go out and have to achieve it themselves, or are we going into further detail?
So the degree of detail would be on, for example, energy use intensity by property type.
And how they achieve that would be on that. So we're just setting that standard.
At this point in time. I mean, if there's a future scenario in which the city has significantly more resources, then we would start to get into supporting buildings with audits and things like that, which was the intention with that grant.
So first of all, okay.
We're agnostic, I think, as to build to achieve the targets. You just have to make sure that the targets are reasonable.
Yeah, it helps to define it. But then again, on the smaller buildings, it's a little bit more difficult than the larger buildings. In that regard, I mean, the smaller ones are managing a lot more moving parts than the larger. Tenant would be a full building with tenants versus one commercial tenant, vice versa.
Has there been any other municipality who is done or doing something similar as us that we can mimic? I don't like creating the wheel if it's been successful, if it's rolling nice.
I would have done it successfully. Right.
Yes, so we can, I'll add a task of review other jurisdictions, policies and standards.
Yeah. It'll trigger our brain. And you know what, like we've all been noting, there's a ton of other acronyms, Health Green Building Council and so on and so forth. Are there any in the ordinance? The sticking point might be, who are we following? I read a ton of articles, I see vendors that are complying with X, Y, and Z. Who are we following to define that our performance, there's a lot of entities out there, and I know you probably know, like the ones we should be following, but going with this, someone could say, well, why aren't we doing what the federal government or some other entity is doing in the green building space? And we would say, well, we've chosen these six to.
We looked at the IMT table a lot, Institute for Market Transformation, because it has all the different standards and what the different things of calculating them are, and then what the fines are and all that. I think that'll be a really helpful resource for this group. And then I can talk whenever we have insight into like Denver has kept pushing their targeting they fly back their interpreting here. Like there's a lot of changes coming because I think they're receiving all the public comment. So to the degree that that's helpful. They only got it, right? Resources for it.
Yeah, something I said I didn't see or something get that kind of stuff, like just so that when we're thinking or oh well, this over here said this. Let's keep this.
This is another document in addition to what Paul listed as good resources. Somebody gave me a hard copy of this. This is published by ASHRAE with Energy. Yes, it's the building performance standard, the technical resource guide. And it's technical, but it's got a lot of good guidance in how you make some choices. That's what I found. Oh, I haven't read the whole thing yet. It's
Well, it's the title of it, actually is building performance standards.
yeah, it's a technical resource guide. This was published, I believe, in 2023. And IIT was actually one of the contributors. It's not, of course. But it helps you understand that, when you're setting certain standards, what some of the advantages, some of the disadvantages, of making some of these choices. And then put them together in the process. I will try and find a link where people can get this without paying an ASHRAE fee.
Kara, could we go back to that previous slide, which has the liquidity responsibilities? I know that was kind of really small, but I don't know.
I can-
margin, like if I see what our responsibilities are, maybe that'll help us identify our tasks.
It's on this left side.
Speak more to the aid and community outreach and engagement.
Yes, so the intention, even without the grant, is to use city financial resources to aid in the implementation of this ordinance. So right now, the proposal is to use 2026 budget dollars from both the existing Sustain Evanston program, which is a predominantly business incentive program, and from the Evanston Green Homes pilot, which is a multifamily residential retrofit program to support buildings that are subject to the buildings ordinance. But that budget hasn't been passed yet.
So that's less so us, the six of us kind of going out, also us creating recommendations for a program to be enacted by someone else to be going out to the community, right?
Right.
Okay.
Okay, the ordinance.
So, develop an alternative compliance plan, options, is something that this board would have to. Public, or,
Yes, from the technical side.
okay.
Is there a draft yet of that form?
No.
Could expand on the it's kind of farther down the line, but community outreach and engagement. What is the city expecting this committee in terms of its marketing this
I don't have any expectations. I think that's for you all to determine and discuss.
Yeah, so really find opportunities, I think.
because this is a finite number of buildings that were impacted. Right? So is the goal to get people behind it? Understand it?
Understand it too.
Yeah. Should everyone participate? Right. That's what I mean. It sounds like I'm kind of thinking it because it sounds like they're in the system and we'll find the ones that aren't. So maybe we have eventually, a semi-annual parties, healthy building parties or something like that, where you have to call it a party or feed food. So I'm just, that's a bullet point there, so I just wanted to address it, but, I know that's down the line, so. Sounds like there's no definition for it, but, I think. Is there a blue budget? No. We'll find. But anyway, so. I meant by finite is, we're just talking to a specific audience, not the whole city, but even though the whole city might be behind it, initially we should be really focused on supporting the group that needs to enact this.
I think there's some fear out there that this is mandate to spend a big pile of money.
To kind of make that one.
Well, that's how they perceive
This one.
well, the buildings in order to comply with these targets.
Oh.
They're gonna have these big expenses.
Yeah.
And, I think probably what's helpful is to give them a vision of how that could be a process over time. And I think that helps soothe some of the anxieties that people have for the requirements that this will be. But this isn't something you have to do next year. This is,
Right,
these are targets ultimately for 2050.
right. Well, their targets, right, so we'll have to talk about and the, alternative compliance plans, because all day long, this building owner and someone in the construction industry, there's only so much you can do to get that building. So, we have to also the alternative say, oh, we understand where you're at, and think about, right, their bottom line, their pocketbook and cost benefit.
And to that note, I mean, there's also external measures that we just can't control. We can maybe find ways where we want them to hit these benchmarks, but will we be able to switch energy? We'll be able to get them off the gas and we'll be enough, but, where do we stand on that decision? Will they be able to do the retrofits they need in order to make this work with other ordinances there in some business? That's a big part of what brings the fair out to this property owners, is that we're gonna have an overlying mandate to bring these buildings into energy compliance, but yet they may not have resources on the back end to achieve that. Like ComEd may not be there for that power. They may not be able to remove tenants to renovate their buildings.
We have already some comment to, I mean, I know it says that they're projected to be net zero 2053. We have someone we can talk to it.
Yes.
Engage us realistic.
Mhm.
And they are trying to do that.
Yes. I'll add that as a task
What was that question?
to like a liaison with comment.
Yeah, someone who's at comments can ask. them
Yeah, of course.
questions, like, if we're putting more on the grid, what does that look like?
So it also sounds like we need to come up with some guidelines for the equity prioritized buildings in terms of how to allocate any potential money.
That's what we need for the accountability board.
Yeah.
That's it.
And provide advice to the board to determine city aid.
Can I just say it out loud, is the ordinance is focusing on energy as one of the criteria for targets, right? Not emissions.
I mean, there are 3 targets. So 0 on-site greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. Improved energy use intensity, which is
Yeah.
in my mind a big responsibility of this committee, which is determining what that looks like. And then 100% renewable electricity procurement by 2050.
0 on-site gas emissions,
Yes,
the second one.
Mhm.
What was the second, that's the first one?
that was the first one. And the second one was an energy use intensity target.
But energy usage intensity versus emissions intensity, for example.
Correct.
That's our yardstick is the energy.
And the last one's purchasing offset. Or what was the last one?
Renewable electricity procurement, 100%. Right. Well, it feels like we have a lot of tasks. Any other tasks to add? I could read through them. We've got,
Yeah, I'd love to get comments. Was there report done by comment on its ability to,
I think we have the numbers to tell them. Okay.
because that's one big hurdle with comment is
It's not that simple. So
they don't really have the capacity. When it comes to, there's been a mandate on electric vehicle charging, and you don't get a call back from ComEd because they really can't provide it. Stability. What you're looking to do, so, if it's a large building, so.
And technically, it's not, and that's why it's 25 years and not 15. It's like kind of, it's part of this process. They are a significant part of the partnership.
Right.
Converting over from natural gas or finding alternative uses of energy.
from, I mean, in order to do a standard, they've got to have some. As you guys know, they've got to say, well, we can do 50 kilowatts. Right now we can only provide 10. But what if we want to? What's their capacity?
Their community solar resident. So like nothing, multi-family perspective, 100% the energy procurement means every resident is doing that sign up on their own, so we have to take it into account. That's it's never gonna be fully compliant with that third point.
We also have community choice aggregation, so there's a possibility that the city could
Just what?
support.
Yeah.
But people legally still have to be able to opt out, so. Okay, let me read through our task list so far. Review ASHRAE BPS technical resource guide, determine the final performance standards, review IMT implementation guide, determine the data verification process. This is for benchmarking, should be clear. Organize the benchmarking data.
That's our task.
Should I change how that's described?
Or, I mean, it's our task to organize the benchmarking data, is it not just provide the benchmarking data?
So maybe review.
Yeah, review, I mean, we're not developing it, it exists right now, right?
Review other jurisdictions' policies and standards. Refine the covered properties list. Review the BEAM data platform organization. That's our benchmarking data platform. Determine outreach and engagement. Define property type classifications. Determine interim performance standards. Liaise with ComEd and determine their capacity and programs. Identify those who've not reported for benchmarking. Determine alternative compliance pathway methodology. Determine the baseline data year and define net zero. Does that sound like a fairly comprehensive list for now?
For now.
Okay.
Would the accountability board be doing the identify those who have not reported? Is it our job to get people to?
It was not codified. So you all meeting before them, so you can,
The accountability is like, are we doing it or not? That's.
Part of the,
Well, yeah, what does
Okay.
implementation look like? Yeah, the accountability board, and I probably be looking at implementation and consequences.
so do we want to kick this task to them? All right. let's do
Yeah.
it. Okay. All right. So
I would also, I mean, the term outreach and engagement kind of falls in the same.
yeah, that's in the ordinance. It's listed for both. So that one is codified, but it's verbatim exactly the same thing until responsibility. But you're right that it's shared.
And then just on that, it's kind of, when you say determine outreach and engagement, I think that a measure of this would be both internal clients, be it Evanston customers, and then external clients, be it like ComEd or some other providers that will work with us on this task. So I see that there's two paths for that one.
So
Not that we want to take out both, but I just don't see the it needs both, needs to be discussed separately.
Do you think it's worth adding a task that's identify partners more specifically?
Yeah, I just don't, I just see it in two parts, right? One's the entire, it's calling internal customers, the energy, the Evanston buildings. The other ones are the customers that are going to be in support of this or participate in, our energy providers or, there's other entities that we need to measure up.
Stakeholder.
Yeah.
Right. Identify partners and map stakeholders. Okay, so I'm going to show what Kirsten and I kind of came up with as possibilities for the next step with this. We have a timeline exercise, so we could take some of these tasks and start to fit them into a timeline. And we can also fit them into a prioritization matrix, lower priority, due soon, high priority, due soon, high priority, due later, lower priority, due later. Is there any inclination of doing one or the other of these first, or some other process,
What was the first one?
a timeline?
What is today? Can we delineate for a second before we go into the timeline? What is this? What's technical versus accountability board, and what is our goals for this? We're pointing this for 3 years, but do we have a deadline to have something prepared in a certain period of time?
The accountability board has to report to city council quarterly, and then they owe them a report after 1 year. But we intentionally did not codify how long the rulemaking process should be.
Say handover process from technical to accountability, and then we kind of step aside, or was it considered that they're both living committees?
It was considered that this would be a temporary committee and that the accountability board would.
Carry it. Okay.
Was it codified? This would be just done 12 months.
Is it codified?
That's what you sold me, Joel.
I can check. You could be right,
Yeah, I think I read that somewhere. At least that's what I'm reading into this.
but then you can always,
Oh, you know, it's out for more time, but for now,
Yeah.
the 1 year, so 1 year for this group to solidify the technical portion. And a couple extra days, but that's the tight.
That's why we also get what other municipalities have done. That can kind of give us assist us in, what we can do
Also,
and what's our.
we also have, so there's the Building Performance Standard Coalition, which is 35 different cities and states that Evanston is a part of, that have committed to passing this process. So they're in the process of the rulemaking right now also. So that might help us to look at who's done and also
Right.
who's also in the process. So that we can see, yeah, and also if this can pass, how the, how are you thinking about this, since public must still sausage making it clear.
Yeah, right, yeah. So that's where. Yeah, if you've got. Articles. Yeah. Their guidelines, so I guess, so.
I'll add one more that speaks to like a resource hub.
Right. So I guess that would be a high priority in the near future. Is to identify.
Yeah, I think all of it, guys, the science is the. It's the, we don't have to repeat the way those.
Right, so we could get that, this group could get that, read it. See what we think will work for us.
Yeah.
We did find an answer to the question. Duration, the committee shall be dissolved after city council has approved rules and procedures implementing this ordinance in response to the committee's recommendations, unless city council votes to reauthorize the committee.
So you could be out of the channel.
What it sounds like.
Say Wednesday works.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? Thoughts on whether we want to do kind of a timeline or this sort of prioritization or define these differently?
I like prioritization. Yeah,
And I think you already said that like the compilation of resources about you is a high priority that is.
yeah, so we got that and started, it's like, using that as a. Guideline.
It's like an email thread that we just share information with this group, or what's the best
So unfortunately, yeah, we can't do that with the Open Meetings Act. So a lot of the work will take place live during the meetings, and then we'll post everything that we reviewed on our website.
So for like sharing resources,
We'll put it all on the website.
I'll need you. To be an additional attachment, basically. Okay.
So it could be in the packet, but for ease, I think it'll be a series of different links on the committee webpage itself.
So if I were to want to share some links.
Yeah,
So
just
just
that. Or you can, I mean, anyone can send an email to the whole committee, but BCC so that people don't respond. Because the response is what triggers the OMA, the Open Meetings Act violation, because then it becomes a conversation. Okay. So all of our sort of compile resources and review a lot of documents we want to put up in this upper right quadrant. So the ASHRAE, the IMT. Anything else that we're thinking might go up here?
I would like to see the, ComEd thought process.
Okay.
So maybe inviting ComEd to our things.
stakeholder map. Yeah, and it's low priority, we also do.
ComEd had started a presentation at the Utilities Commission sometime in the last year or so. So this will be the first time they've answered some of these questions.
I think the review beam data,
The benchmarking and the being tests,
yeah.
you would put in upper right.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Getting a lot of, I feel like a lot of things.
We're done with it.
Yeah, I think we have too much.
So it's up to you all if we want to keep doing this with everything, or we can also just,
Can review what you want to achieve in the next half hour.
I think, you know what, that's a good start, and then as info comes through, then we'll finish that.
okay. I think that makes sense. We'll revisit timeline at a later date then, if that's okay with everyone. Okay, so I'll just speak into existence. Our high priority that are due soon are reviewing data both through the Beam portal and our general benchmarking data that's available. Liaising with ComEd and determining their capacity and programs, so perhaps inviting them to either the next meeting or a future meeting. Reviewing all the resources available to us. And I'm sorry to be pesky, I'm going to add that the other communities and jurisdictions policies and standards to that as well. And the IMT and ASHRAE information, if we can get our hands on all of that. And just generally compiling all these resources.
So does the IMT identify other buildings for other entities? Let's say like Greystar, that has 15 great examples of execution of net zero, or, you know. I'm also looking at the private sector answer.
Yeah,
To executing that.
and what I agree on, like, there's a lot of good case studies, like this is what N zero looks like. But they aren't requiring or even soliciting us, just like the jurisdiction isn't saying, hey, tell us what you got. This compliance.
But it would be a really good resource to read about. To help us. On this road, right? And I'm looking, jurisdictions are trying to do it in bulk, but the private sector, how they've got the actual buildings done. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I can help with like anything, we don't have to like. compliance.
yeah, it doesn't need to be codified. I want to see it in action. And I think, from, as we all know, reading building magazine articles, et cetera, it's happened. How have they gotten it? We can include that in our implementation.
This is also the first year of fines. It's like New York, 2025 was the first year of fines, but New York set it up to 80% of their public buildings would be okay for this first
Right.
2025 year. So in the next 2 years, we're gonna start seeing actual fines hit. So the compliance will come to light, I think.
Even concerned about compliance, I'm concerned, where I was going with it is I get excited when I read articles about buildings or, property management companies or owners that have done what we're trying to achieve net zero. That's a simple technical term. So let's go to these people and say, hey, how did you do it? And kind of glean from them what they look like start to finish. Like how they got there with the list. I took this, 100-year-old building in Manhattan. Yeah. Now we're just humming along.
Yeah, I think if we can put that in the resource section, like all of the cases we can find, that would be cool.
Right. So,
Some of them may come out when we look at even the benchmarking data. So if we have an office building, 2 office buildings, and one has half the energy usage intensity of the other, that might be something to go to go high.
right. And where I wanna hopefully take us is to be that resource back to community outreach, saying, what, this is not a hard thing to do. And it looks like we're talking about, to still get that pushback. So if we have real life examples. Which I know are out there. Yes, in buildings. It's a lot of fun exterior, I'm sorry, I can get excited. Exterior, it's so cool, you can do things. Exterior facades and stuff. Great.
So I think we'll skip ahead in our agenda. There were some questions related to the path to zero that we wanted to talk about. But I think we should hold off on that until the next meeting because we need to talk about collaboratively building our next meeting agenda, which is a task unique to this meeting because we don't have chairs and vice chairs. And so based off of what we just discussed, would you all like staff to invite ComEd to the next meeting or not ready?
Yeah, and I don't.
Okay.
You should still contact them because I'm sure their schedule and their presentation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. And if they're ready to talk about Evanston in particular. Because I'd love to see like a map of what their grid looks like, what their equipment looks like, maybe their equipment.
So then for next meeting, we have a series of questions related to path to zero, just about whether we'll focus on 2030 standards first or try to do them all at once. Whether we focus on the energy use intensity standards first, and if we have all 3 standards for that first 2030 year, will we define zero on-site or some percentage of on-site for 2030? Or will we define a certain percentage of renewable procurement by 2030? So I'm just reading these out to start to get the wheels spinning about things that we need to discuss soon to help us with prioritization. And then at what point will we determine allowability of offsets and credits and things like that? Certainly needs to be discussed soon, but is that allowable starting in 2030? Or is that only allowable later? And then based off of that sort of category of questions, are there any other questions that you all think we should discuss at our next meeting? Or refining any of these questions?
We have to work on it. So we don't know where we are in the process and with data collection and technically reviewing that, but we can set a path for 2030 or where we are. That'll kind of come out of the wash.
Yep, so I'm not requesting answers to these questions.
I think these are stuff we just got to take one at a time, but we need to kind of go back to for an agenda we're trying to put together an agenda for next week.
Yeah, and so are there any other questions that you think we should think about in preparation for that? Because this was just honestly sort of staff spitballing some things that need to be determined pretty soon.
Well, one of our tasks was to find net zero, right?
Yeah, as we started this conversation.
We should do that early.
Yeah, that big slide number 2 and move it up.
Okay,
So that would that be an item for our next meeting?
Yeah.
So agenda item.
okay. Any other questions that we might want to consider? Questions like this at our next agenda? Okay,
I mean, it's just achievable. I think we got 1 and 3, bullet 1 and 3, we just seen down the road. Bullet number 2 seems to kind of what we're setting our technical benchmarks. Where we are, what we want to get to.
okay,
What is 0?
okay. So then also for the next meeting agenda, we talked about property type classification, since that's something that should be done quite soon. So another kind of similar question, not to be answered now. Will we be using the Energy Star Portfolio Manager building classifications? Or is there some nuance that we need for Evanston specifically? So we'll,
I think it has nuances.
okay, so we'll add that to our agenda for next time also. And then we're defining this now as an updated. We'll revisit our timeline and our tasks list. Is there anything else people are thinking of? Anything else for that next meeting agenda? Yep, we'll do elections. Good point. And then I think we can start to talk about, between now and then, we'll have compiled a bunch of resources, and so we can talk. Okay, I think we're off to a good start then. Okay. So then our final order of business is to discuss and vote on our meeting cadence. So I know we started to talk about that, but we've got really any option available to us. You all can determine how you would like to proceed. Bi-weekly or monthly. Again, we need a quorum in person to conduct any business. So certain members can participate virtually during certain meetings, but there have to be at least 4 people in person to have a meeting. as Charles said, the holidays are coming up, so that's something we should also keep in mind.
Yeah, 26th, the day before. Actually, 26th is fine for me, but it's the next day. Month. So I guess we should decide weekly or monthly. What is this the committee here? And is there,
Yeah.
I mean, I know roundtable. No, no.
It's just the
That's just here.
Yeah.
So it's up to us, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then monthly, November 12th or 26th.
When exactly is Thanksgiving this year?
26th.
26th.
Or the 27th.
We could also just vote on the next one if people don't want to,
We have a date. We have to have a date to come back.
yeah. But let's focus on that first. Let's do, when is our next meeting?
The 12th would be in. We're looking at 3 weeks.
I'll ask you a question.
Can't be the 19th.
Just as we're picking this date, we put up a slide, we created a bunch of tasks. Like, is it gonna, like, who's tasked with collecting that information? Who's tasked with getting us the benchmarking information so we could have something to review? Who's tasked? Is that what you guys are doing for us?
That is what we're doing as an understaffed team right now.
I get it. I understand. So do you need, so on that regard, what do you need? Do you need a month? Do you need 2 weeks to pull some things together so we can make it?
Oh, 2 weeks is fine for that.
It's good to know.
Charles, our intern has already acquired the benchmarking data, so we can get rid of some of the tinkering with it and just could that be
So
posted?
then for us as a group, we're gonna get a packet of information for us to review for next time.
Maybe,
So it kind of, it's a practical question. So when we receive this, how much time do we do it to make it a productive 12 or 26?
For example, if we meet on the 12th, we can start to talk about some of these other like definitions and that maybe we don't necessarily need all the data for, so we can get going on those. Then in December, by that time, hopefully we've had enough time to review, the resources or whatever else has come our way. And dive a little bit more deeply.
Was there a reason we couldn't do the 3rd? Or the,
Next week?
Oh, the November, or December?
no, the 3rd Wednesday of the month? It's on any conflict. Oh, you know what?
Someone might have.
It was me in the afternoon, but I'm willing to, as long as they're in the meeting in the morning. I'm a commissioner of the Lake County Housing and Community Development Commission, and that's in the afternoon. So, yeah, so where I'm going is I was thinking November 12th. Or the 19th, rather, the 19th. Give you one more week.
So team, if staff's comfortable with having stuff to us
On the 12th.
in 2 weeks, well, it's a matter of just making it productive. I mean, 12, I'm okay with the 12th or the 26th, as long as we had, you guys had time to packet it up and, it's just kind of packet it up, give us a little chance to review it. Don't need much time.
We could do the 19th also. We just offered up sort of a 2 week.
When it splits the middle, that's pretty simple.
Does that work for everyone?
Mobile on.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Morning, so.
Yeah.
It's the whole Wednesday.
Yeah,
Okay,
the 19th would work better for me. Yeah.
19th it is.
all right.
That helps us if we go into a monthly cadence, because following up, so I'll over to.
Great. All in favor of November 19th?
I,
Any opposed? Great. And we'll do 8:30 to 10. How are people feeling about this meeting room?
like if we could, since it's not that big of a committee, it'd be nice if we could have
Condensed.
tables.
Pretty much just. Smaller room, probably not enough, just.
Want to set the next December meeting while we're,
Yeah, let's do
so that
that.
we give it,
Easier if it's plan.
Yeah, so we don't have to do the cadence. We can just do the next 2 meetings.
and then just this is out. So I'm thinking about the 17th. Then
So we have like a month between. 17th, the 19th, whatever, 17th, December works.
Also, okay. All right, all in favor of the third meeting, December 17th? Any opposed? Great. Okay. That is the end of the agenda that I have, unless we'd like to revisit anything else that we kind of skipped for this one.
Just one reminder about the OMA. Is that in addition to the BCC, any of us can get together, most that we can do without the OMA plans to be.
The trouble uploading.
I can talk to Clerk Mendoza about that, because I think you had reached out to.
It like froze out, like, you know, it's
Yeah, it
up
froze
on
out.
one thing and not the other.
And that's Sunday night. It was, so I thought I would just, you know, how there's sometimes you get, they don't tell you, but they're down for like presentation or something. So I thought they might be doing that over the weekend, because Sunday night I got it fine.
I got in, I just wasn't able to up, to like, what, not up to.
Right, I got the
There's problems where it wasn't connecting.
Yeah.
But actually.
I think you can also just email them to the clerk. But
That's one and done.
I'll reach out to her and see. I know you had, and she hadn't responded yet.
Right, but I got it to work and I,
Oh.
and I think I emailed business.
Yeah.
I emailed my documents too, but then it's submittable, it said I was not. So, but there was another option to submit the. forms. So I've done my training, I just.
Yeah, there's nowhere to upload.
Okay,
I finally figured it out. I can't repeat it because it took a while.
Yeah, it shouldn't be that hard.
So if you click on the welcome, and submit, it'll find your names, click on that welcome, and then if I opens it up and.
No, I see myself.
And did you click on that and it opened up?
Like, I have some stuff in there,
Oh, this.
but it wouldn't let me,
Much of one.
yeah, there's only so many windows. But then let me go anywhere.
Agility test and navigated.
I don't, yeah.
great.
Thank you for hosting.
Of course. Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And where exactly will all this be posted for us to access?
It's actually.
So I'll send you all.
Yes, the link to that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.